Right on. Well, hello, everybody. My name's Blair Vanderlucht. I work at Grassroots Economics as a DevOps and infrastructure person. Really excited to be here. Been a big fan of MetaFest for a while. Really excited to share the current state of Grassroots Economics with everybody and give you kind of a glimpse of the plans we have moving forward. We're going to try and cover a few things today, just give you an overview on the community inclusion currencies that we are deploying, the efforts around universal basic income tied to these tokens, some exciting projects with agriculture, and a farm experiment that we deployed on site, and some really exciting things around social investment, NFTs, and some future goals around that. All right, so I'm going to start with a little background on Grassroots for folks that are new to the project. The project's been around for about 10 years now. It was first deployed as an alternative currency project in 2010 with the launch of the EcoPesa in informal settlements near Kongowea, Mombasa. This project was joined by 5 more currencies up till 2014 and 15. And then in 2016, these currencies were bridged under the banner of Surafu Credit. And now Surafu is kind of the network token that is used that I'll be talking about for the rest of the presentation. And it's now kind of the network token that bridges a lot of these communities together. In 2018, they kind of started making the moves towards blockchain technology. And the current iteration of the project that's deployed in the field was deployed in, I think, January 2020 on XDAI. And for a long time, it was one of the largest projects on XDAI. So some impact metrics to date. When this project was launched, there was around 4,000 users of the Surafu credit system. Today, there's over 42,000 users with a total trading volume of 280 million Surafu, or 2.6 million USD. It's been over 400,000 trades, and it's thriving in urban areas, and it's been rolled out to rural areas as well around Kenya. The average age of people in the Surafu network is between 26 and 36 years old, so it's relatively young. And over on this dashboard on the right, you can see how Surafu is used for trading. You can see that a lot of the products that are purchased with Surafu is food and water and farm inputs and labor. And I think it's interesting to note, you can see the gender breakdowns too, that a lot of the trade is dominated by women trading farming and labor inputs. So talking more broadly about what Grassroots is trying to do, the fundamental problem that we're trying to solve is the liquidity crunch in impoverished areas. You can think this is a situation where there's possibly like land and resources, and there's lots of labor and people around, but in a lot of places, there's just simply not enough money to make those transactions happen. So that's kind of the premise behind community currency projects. And I know I'm following up like a group of like experts in this area. So I hope I don't misrepresent the goals of these types of projects. But the idea is that if you can introduce liquidity into these economies, then you kind of introduce the lubricant for trade to happen. And you can kind of break the deadlock that exists between these idle assets and labor. And so, now we think about, okay, we need to introduce this, we need to introduce more currency. That's great. So how can we do that? Well, we could go and airdrop, fiat, airdrop some money into these communities. But that's something that 8 organizations have tried over time. And what kind of happens in those situations is, you're faced with some amount of bureaucratic red tape. There could be gamesmanship, and at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that money is going to leave the community. If that community doesn't have the internal resources and productive capacity to create goods and services, then they're just going to buy all those goods and services from external groups, and that money is going to leave the community you place it in really quickly as it imports all of the goods it needs. And so that money may help for some amount of time, but it's not going to lead to the lasting change that that you need in order to combat issues of poverty. So option B, we can introduce a mutual credit system, and a mutual credit system will allow people to mint their own currencies and to be able to trade goods and services based on that new currency they're minting. And this is obviously not a new idea. This has been around for a long time, and there's a lot of different projects that have been deployed in this area. So a lot of these mutual credit systems, they can increase community resilience because of the trusted bonds that are created and the people that are cooperating in that environment. It can help sustain economic growth within the community by keeping currency flows inside the community and flowing between the individuals inside that community. These mutual credit systems kind of have a problem, though, in that they just take a lot of care and stewardship by the community. And even though we've tried to deploy many of these projects in the past, many of them just have not survived over time, usually due to a lack of circulation and general acceptance. It's hard to get people to use your new money. So that kind of issue of scale, and I think the last presenters addressed that conversation really well. It's okay, you may be able to get a group of people using this new currency, and this mutual credit system may be really good for this group of people, but how do we scale it up to address the 2 billion people living in poverty today? It's hard thing to bridge. So what Grassroots Economics kind of aims to do is bridge these mutual credit systems together with a network token, and essentially start creating networks of community currencies in something they call community inclusion currencies. And I think this might be similar to the federated networks and federated currencies that were talked about previously. So we're starting small, and we're letting those communities network together. So it's in this community inclusion currency scheme. We have the community currencies that each community will be able to issue based on the goods and services they provide. And then we link those together via network token, which in this case is Sarafu. And then individual communities can trade with each other via a bonding curve. The network of communities, this network creates more resiliency for each of the individuals inside of these communities because there's more goods available. So if your community can only make, plantains and chapatis and that's 2 goods, but then the next village over has more petrol resources, which you really need. It's how do you bridge your currency over to that next community well, if you have some way to exchange your currency for theirs, and then you can make that trade happen, then now you have access to like 3 total goods. And so that kind of compounding effect makes each individual currency more valuable. And because of that value and access to more goods, it makes it more more utility of that currency will make it more resilient over time, is the idea. I'm just going to pop in here real quick, make sure my video is still good. Okay. So the creation process and the CSEs, Sarafu is a community-driven basic income token. The infrastructure of Sarafu is secured by humanitarian orgs and allows anyone to receive Sarafu. There is a 2% holding fee on Sarafu, so it's like a demurrage type of currency. And then we take this 2% fee out once a month. We calculate it, daily, and then your balance is withdrawn at the end of the month, and then that money gets redistributed out to the active users. So one of the ideas behind these mutual credit systems is you don't really want people like accumulating money and turning it into small banks and then like loaning it to each other, because then you've kind of like replicated the existing system that we have. You really want money to continually circulate. So the demurrage is kind of like a disincentive to like hoard and really use this currency to flow through the system. And then as kind of a nice benefit of that, you can just airdrop the protocol fees for holding like back on the community. And you can even, if you have social, equity, things that you want to achieve, like making sure that extra credits go towards, people that are the most vulnerable in the community, you can adjust kind of like where that money goes, and so that you can have some ability to have universal basic income, but then also like, really target aid towards the people that need the most assistance. So this is a better view of kind of like how someone might onboard to Sarafu. They're basically the kind of way it works on the ground is that the Red Cross drives around in these trucks, and they have this like speaker and like a bunch of people in the field, and they're like, hey, let's there's this Sarafu token. Come ask us for information on it or how to join it. And when people want to opt into Sarafu, they sign up on USSD via USSD on feature phones a lot of times. And so a lot of these places don't have, there's not everybody has a smartphone. And so, a lot of times what folks do have is like an old Nokia brick phone and a SIM card. And so you use this program called USSD, which works with the telecoms and SSS messages to onboard to this program. And when you've created an account, you get 100 Sarafu credit. Sarafu is, the supply of Sarafu is expanded by the individuals that join the network. It doesn't really have any other type of inflationary aspect besides the number of people inside the user base. And then once you have an account, then your 2% holding fee is in effect, and then you're able to onboard to these things. I kind of want to talk about like how the CICs are actually like are issued. These community inclusion currencies are backed by commitments of goods and services by individuals in the like actually want to that want to create a commitment for their goods and be issued this like mutual aid credit. And so that backing store of CICs is administered by oftentimes Chama, which is a group of women in the village, and they kind of are like the the people that you need to work with in order to make that commitment for that credit. And in that kind of process is kind of like a process of trust, right? And I think that's really interesting because especially in the blockchain world, we talk about this like trustless system. But I think that, a lot of us understand that having a blockchain there kind of gets us to a place where we don't maybe have to worry about the trust of making sure the money transaction has occurred. And it kind of like frees us to really deal with like, human to human trust problems of like, you've promised me this, you've promised me this level of service over the course of a month and you haven't delivered, like, why is that? Like you kind of gotta like, in order to participate in a mutual credit system, you kind of got to know your neighbor. You kind of have to have a solid reputation. So even though we have blockchain, there's a great deal of trust that kind of happens in these communities. And just, I guess, to follow on the conversation of trust, because I like this story that Will Ruddick of Grassroots, the founder, tells, is like when you're out in the field and you're trying to onboard someone to Serapho, you'll kind of like come up to one vendor and you're like, hey, we have this currency, Serapho, it's great, it's going to help everybody in the village out. And they're like, well, why would I want to use this? Like this isn't something I can take out and like pay for like college education or gas for my car and stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but you could use it to trade with this person over here, like let's see if they'll join, And so then you like walk over to the other person and you bring the first person with you and you're like, hey, will you accept Serapho in exchange, for this other person, being in the same system, and you can buy their goods too. And if they say yes, then the other person's like, all right, well, that's one other person. Cool, I'm in, And so I think, we'll call that process braiding. And I think that's really, really interesting. You're kind of like braiding these like levels of trust together. And then once you get enough people in the community that are on board with it, then it kind of like can organically grow. But that first like bootstrapping problem is like a very like non-scalable type of like really face-to-face level of trust building. And then once you get people kind of accepting this community currency, then you're kind of like off to the races, because then everybody can kind of see its value because they see a workaround around them. So yeah, and this slide kind of hints a little bit at the way these community currencies are traded amongst each other. So the inspiration behind the interoperability of these currencies is the Bancor V1 contracts. And so the existence of a network token, in this case Serapho, allows any community currency that's backed by Serapho to be exchanged with one another. So if example of the two villages that have two different types of goods, like they can trade against each other because they can trade for Serapho. A can trade for Serapho, and then you can trade Serapho for B, and then vice versa. So there's a lot of parameterization and token economics that can go into, and folks have worked on this, into designing those bonding curves and like how that trade happens. But from a basic level, that existence of the network token is kind of like what makes a community currency, in our case, a community inclusion currency, makes it that networked effect of bridged currencies. So I really like this diagram that Tomas made. It represents the the visualization of Seraphim being traded, and it really kind of makes you like really see and understand, like, you know, it's like we do have this kind of like network things going on, right? Like that's that I think to a lot of people in like, you know, the crypto space and stuff that want to see these like cooperative systems take off, like this is really cool. You know, it's like we have resiliency because we have systems that are interwoven with each other and can support each other. And not only does like the underlying value of community inclusion currencies increase when you have this like strong effective networks, but you also because you have this like digital medium, like you have more analytics and like fine-tune ability to tailor the delivery of aid in these communities a lot more than you would with like paper currency or something like that. So in the case of like, you know, the Red Cross, like when they go and they want to choose between doing cash relief and just giving people cash to help out whatever issue they're trying to address, or tailored to community inclusion currency, we have, you know, research that shows because of this nature of this circulation of money, you just have this multiplier effect of keeping currency inside the community and letting it cycle. In you know, some of the research that we point to is like showing like a, you know, 20 times multiplier on the effectiveness of this aid money. So something like this should really be like, you know, should really get us excited about how we can, like, you know, fight poverty, because we can create, you know, resilient economies. I think that's really exciting. And then you also unlock a lot of features. I know, like one of Glenn Weil's radical markets ideas, this idea of like data co-ops, you know, or the ability to kind of own our data, and if people need that data and they can, you know, they can profit from it, like we should make money for that. So people in this system could like opt in to selling anonymized aggregated data and being able to receive funding, you know, receive additional UBI payments or additional payments for that, like you know, strictly opt-in type of data collection. But you know, if everyone has an address, and we have this shared data, you know, we kind of this data co-op idea is more accessible. And also this gives us a lot better ability to hit sustainable development goals. And so the idea of trying to satisfy things like no hunger, no poverty, better education, gender equality, partnerships, and the strength of economies. Those are all within the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's like, well, you know, this is something that we can really provably show affects all of these outcomes. In addition to you know, things like climate change and land use stuff, which we'll talk about hopefully time to talk about in a minute. So we actually right now are like, we're re-platforming the entire Grassroots Economics tech stack. We're rewriting it from scratch right now, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about the tech stack, but I think like the salient points that I do want to talk on is our guiding principles, which is everything's open source under the GPL3 license. We want to have distributed availability. You know, at some point we'd love to have you know, nodes, some kind of mesh network node interface, like in villages. We want, you know, public collaboration. We want all of our modules to be pluggable. So this really becomes a flexible platform that any aid organization or community that wants to implement this type of community inclusion currency could leverage and then swap out the parts that they want to and take the things they don't want. Everything is we are trying to get closer and closer to decentralized data storage and peer-to-peer data on the clients. Obviously, this is a challenge, especially in our case, because of the nature of using USSD and feature phones. We don't have the ability for everyone to have their own wallet, so we do maintain like a custodial wallet system, with the intention that we're phasing in sovereign wallets or cell phone wallets over time. So we kind of have to satisfy both architectures, and we're kind of slowly moving that direction. But for this first V1, we have to solve the flexible, pluggable custodial wallet on USSD, which is a challenge. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, hope to have all the fun peer-to-peer stuff soon. So I only have 5 minutes left, and I think with that time, I really want to talk about the syntropic farm stuff. I don't know if there's anyone from Curacao here, but this is actually really cool because someone from Curacao went to Kenya and helped Will and everybody set up this syntropic forest, which is kind of like a regenerative agriculture project. It's kind of like an experiment in, can we start a farm that is a food forest for the community? And if we have a food forest, like where can we go from there? I think there's a lot of people that are thinking this regenerative agriculture plus like crypto thing, and it's kind of cool to like see bits and pieces of this stuff kind of coming to life. And so I don't have time to explain syntropic agriculture, and that's also a cop out because I don't know how it works, but I think it's really cool. It's a food forest. So now if we're extrapolating out and we have this food forest and we have these community inclusion currencies and we have people participating in the food forest, we're doing some amount of regenerative agriculture. It kind of makes sense to like talk about, well, how do we, is there a way we can inject carbon credits, payments to the people that are working on this farm, and so now that we're satisfying UN's sustainability, further SDGs, like how could we publicize that for the individuals that are participating and then be able to reward them further. And that's where the idea of these social good NFTs come from. And so, we're really interested in this. UNICEF is really, interested in like, how do we do, NFTs that prove like, hey, I was, worked certified to work on this regenerative agriculture technique, and I've deployed it in this village. Is there a way that we can direct investment towards people with that kind of skill set and certification? And then, quickly that kind of leads to, okay, how do we do, skills and certifications in a way where we can surface those through the blockchain? And so I think that's really exciting. I think a lot of people are looking at this, this is really cool to me. I'm excited to see this take off. But I think that's all the time I have. So just as an aside, this paper is awesome. Everyone should go try and read it. But it's about absolving debt in times of crisis and the effect of mutual credit. And it's just to say that these systems work, and we have the data to show it. So I think it's a system that could be widely applied to a lot of situations. And I'll leave this screen up. This is also our Gitcoin grant, definitely stop by and consider donating. So that's it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time and telling us more about Grassroots Economics.